I want to talk about
Mussolini's fascism. Yeah.
The IRS, the International Internal Revenue Service, been around since the 1862. Looks like what's his name? Abe Lincoln created it probably to fund the war.
Fascist.
In 1914, there was like a revolution within the Internal Revenue Service. Oddly, right after they formed the Federal Reserve, 1914, or right then when they were forming it, and they created the new income tax. Do you guys know? I would love to hear from you guys about the history of the IRS. A little bit.
So well, the income tax. So all of this stuff, right, was under the Woodrow Wilson administration, and yes, it's certainly not a coincidence, right, that right after the year after they created the Federal Reserve, well, then it's like, okay, well, if this Fed's going to lend us our own money that we will now owe them back with interest, well, we're going to need a little bit of a stream of money coming in, and the way the income tax was sold was that it was only going to apply to the top 1% of people. They sold this as this was during the progressive era, as it was known, and they sold this as a progressive measure. So this is, listen, this is going to be something that's going to be for the fat cats, the robber barons. It's going to be like 2% of their income. Like, we're going to take that, and then we'll share it around with everybody, and the rest of us will all be wealthier. This is not going to apply to your average working Joe, of course.
They keep saying it. They won't stop saying the same thing over and over and over again.
They're still, to this day, they still use the same. But at the time, it was like, okay, so that's how they got the support, and that's how they got it. So we got the Federal Reserve in play. We got the income tax in play. And 3 years later, we're in a world war.
I mean, you know what the Federal Reserve really is doing? It's just their legal way of reaching into your bank account and taking your money. That's right. All they do.
Right. So as the great Ron Paul, happy birthday again, used to always say, right, the real tax is spending. The real tax is government spending. Because when government spends money, what can they do? Well, all they can do is they can either tax the money from you, or they can borrow the money, which is just a promise to tax you in the future, or they can print the money, which is in effect just taxing you right now or a little bit in the future, because it's just robbing the value of your dollar. So when government spends a dollar, they've stolen a dollar from you. Forget taxation is theft. Government spending is theft. And the reason, so when we got into World War I, was it 1917 we got into World War I? Okay, so just a few years after this. Then, well, I know the plan for the income tax was just to be for the top 1%, and you weren't going to, but crisis, World War. So now everybody's going to have to pay taxes, and we're going to have to increase the rates. And then, you know, the crisis will be over soon, except then we have a Great Depression. That's another crisis. We have the Second World War. That's another crisis. And then, oh, by the way, this is just permanent government policy. That there is a fee for producing something. That you are now, not only is there a fee for you having a job and being a productive member of society, but you lose any semblance of Fifth Amendment rights to not incriminate yourself. You now have to incriminate yourself every year to the federal government because you are already presumed guilty, presumed a criminal by your own government for the crime of being a productive member of society.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is they're supposed to issue a receipt on what your taxes go for, and of course, you know, you're under penalty if you don't comply, and there's absolutely no accountability for them if they don't. So, and what you were saying as far as income taxes were never supposed to be for the average wage earner, you know, and then you also pointed out earlier the suspending of gold was supposed to be temporary. It's just that it's that classic Harry Brown quote of "There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program." Yeah,
you let them have a little power. They're not giving it back easy.
What ends up happening when they start this is it's just for the rich. It's no big deal. It won't affect you. Well, it's an emergency, so everyone's going to pitch in. Then it's, well, the emergency, we got another emergency. Well, now it's another world war. And then by the time the crises are finally calming down and you come out and say, okay, you're repealing this, they'll be like, repealing what? Yeah. Well, the taxes. What do you mean? The taxes have always been there.
Well, right, exactly.
Nobody's got a problem with the income tax. You're far right.
Right, so 9 years ago, we kill Osama bin Laden. Just now, we're pulling out of the war in Afghanistan. So is it like, okay, well, goodbye TSA? No, TSA ain't going nowhere, man. That's the norm now. You're used to that. Don't ever believe, the lesson here is don't ever believe there are 15 days to flatten the curve on anything, because it's never that. It's never temporary.
Yeah, Afghanistan was another one. It was never supposed to be this broad war on terrorism or this 20-year thing. It was supposed to be to go and get the terrorists that knocked down the Twin Towers.
Oh, if you look at the AUMA, I mean, the language of it was just to go get the people who knocked down the Twin Towers.
What's AUMA?
That was the authorization.
AUMF?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, AUMF, the authorization of military force.
So they didn't
declare
war.
Authorization for use.
Yeah, they didn't declare war. They declared military force for a constrained mission, which was to go get bin Laden and the terrorists. And that's why, Ron Paul actually voted for that, because that what it was supposed to be. And then he also tried to issue letters of marque and reprisal to basically hire mercenaries to help get these named people, bin Laden, his lieutenants, but and that didn't happen. And then they took that inch and ran about 40, 50 miles with it.
20 years with it.
Yeah, and it should be noted that they had Osama bin Laden in, I think, either November or December of 2001 when they had him pinned in Tora Bora, and they could have killed Osama bin Laden. And they had forces over in Kabul fighting the Taliban. They had forces in the north, Green Berets in the north, that they didn't even call into the action. The forces on the ground were saying, we need reinforcements right here. We've got Osama bin Laden. We could have killed Osama bin Laden in late 2001, been done with the whole thing, called off the entire terror war, and man, what a better world we're living in if that's what we do. And instead, they allowed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and I'm just speculating, but I lean toward intentionally on this. They allowed him to escape into Pakistan because I'll tell you, look, there's no question that a lot of the people, the forces on the ground, were like, we can block off the Pakistan border right now, and we can get bin Laden. This is easy if you just send us the reinforcements. And they had specifically, the Bush administration had not declared war on Al-Qaeda. They had not declared war on the people who did 9/11. They had not even declared war on Afghanistan. They declared war on terrorism, on terror. And they had already had plans to go into Iraq on the pretense that he was working with Osama bin Laden. Now, if you kill Osama bin Laden in December 2001, what really is the motivation to go into Iraq and all of these other wars? You probably lose it. But if he's still out there and he could be working with other people and he could be plotting these things, then you've got 20 years of war.
You think if Hillary would have won, we'd be in Iran?
I don't know. I think certainly you wouldn't have had the deal. I'm sorry. If Hillary had won, I'm thinking 2008. You're talking 2016,
right?
So if Hillary had won in 2016, I think it's likely she would have wanted to push for it. The problem with the war in Iran is that no matter how many of the blood-soaked monster neocons, and I include Hillary Clinton in that list, want a war with Iran, the actual logistics of doing it are so bad that many people in the military are like, look, we just can't do a war with Iran, because Iran is a more serious adversary than any of the countries we've picked on in the Middle East right now. They will slaughter U.S. military members all around.
I want to show people something real quick. We have this map so you can understand, because a lot of people don't know the geography. Iraq is just to the west of Iran, and Afghanistan is to the east. Mm-hmm. I don't believe it was a coincidence. We said Iraq and Afghanistan. What was in the middle, and what did John Bolton say he wanted to do? He said, this time next year, we will be celebrating victory in Tehran.
Yeah.
We had a pincer attack on Iran, but Iran is not Iraq or Afghanistan. It is a mountainous, very well-populated, armed, strong nation.
Yeah.
But they've wanted to go after Iran for a long time.
Did you ever see that? Did you ever see that video from, I think it was around 2003, 5, fact check me on that, but of General Wesley Clark, where he was saying, prior to them going into Iraq, they were telling him, we're going into Iraq, and then the plan after that is to go into Venezuela and ultimately Iran. And he named like 4 or 5 countries.
Seven. That's right. Well,
seven countries. He also included Syria in that list. Yep. I think Sudan was in the list as well. Yeah. No, it didn't play out exactly like the plan that he mentioned, but there was certainly something to that. And you watch that what did happen after 9/11 was wars all throughout the Middle East. I mean, wars in, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Pakistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen,
Venezuela with Guaido.
Yeah, well, but not a war like we had in these other countries.
They want to put central banks in all these countries.
Yeah. Well,
they want to get in there, install the central banking system, get out, and then we won. We've unified the world through economics.
Which goes back to what we were talking about before, is that one of the primary weapon here is debt. Like students, debt. Businesses with the lockdowns, debt. Credit card debt, like everything is debt, and they're getting us to keep feeding them with our productivity by ensnaring us in debt.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, I'll just say, and don't buy their propaganda about this whole thing in Afghanistan. And I hope that people can see through it. Like, I'm not saying this isn't kind of ugly, Joe Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan, and that there's not some like ugly aspects of it, but just like take a step back, zoom out, and peep game. You know what I mean? Like, see what's going on here.
When CNN is saying this is a nightmare, oh, this is a tragedy, Joe Biden, oh, what has he done? I'm kind of like, wait a minute.
But here's what drives me crazy, right? Is that I see these people like right-winger types who, like, I agree with on some stuff, not on others, but I see Charlie Kirk tweeted something. I think it was him. He tweeted something where he goes, CNN saying something, and they go, he takes it as a dig on Biden. He goes, man, when you've lost CNN, you're really doing bad. And it's like, no, Charlie Kirk, you got this game all wrong, man. Why did he lose CNN? Yep. Because he ended a freaking war.
Yeah, dude.
That's why he lost CNN. Did Obama lose CNN when he destroyed Libya? Oh, no, that wasn't a problem. See, all of a sudden, the corporate press has these deep, passionate humanitarian impulses. All of a sudden, there's this moral outrage about the innocent people in Afghanistan. We have started wars in about 6 or 7 different countries that have led to millions of innocent people being slaughtered. Not a peep out of the corporate press, not a peep, as in Yemen, babies are vomiting to death by the hundreds of thousands because of the U.S.-backed Saudi war in Yemen. Not a peep out of the corporate press. But all of a sudden, they're the humanitarians. The one time we end a war. And when was the other time they became big humanitarians? When Donald Trump tried to end the war in Syria. The Kurds. What about the Kurds? See through this, man.
But do you remember what the media said when Trump fired 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria?
It's presidential.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Is this the time Trump has become a president?
That's right. So
well, they also cheered the assassination of Soleimani.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Maybe it's just a wild coincidence that every time it's within the military-industrial complex's interests, the corporate press becomes humanitarian, and when it's in their interests, they look the other way and don't care. So that's all I'm saying. Now, listen, by the way, for anyone out there, Joe Biden is the architect of some of the worst policies in modern American history. He is an evil person, and he is very responsible directly for the war on terrorism, particularly the war in Iraq under George W. Bush that he championed and voted for. Okay? And he's also just an embarrassing, like, elderly, incompetent person. But this is not what it appears to be.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.